Welcome to Frequency Matters, the RF and microwave industry update video series. I am Kristen Anderson, and I'm joined by our technical editor, Gary Lerude. Pat Hindle is in China this week, visiting customers and attending the International Conference and Exhibition on Microwave and Antenna, the IME show in Shanghai. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce and welcome to the Microwave Journal team, Mr. Lerude. Now, Gary, you've been with us a couple of months now, and I know that many people in the industry already know you, but for those who don't, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, and thanks for the warm welcome. I'm an industry veteran of Texas Instruments, MACOM, and most recently Triquint. I've spent my career largely in the gallium arsenide and more recently gallium nitride, the semiconductor world. Have also done applications related to that. So that's been the span of my experience, and I feel very fortunate, certainly during my time at TI, I was involved in the birth, if you will, of the gallium arsenide industry, and so I call myself sort of a midwife at that birth.
I read that. That was funny. The midwife of that. That's great. And something in your background has to do with audio to microwave. You were interested in some communications at one point?
Well, initially my career goal was to go into audio engineering, and as it turns out, I ended up in RF and microwave engineering, ironically. But no regrets about that.
Yep. But as far as communications, we here at the Journal now can benefit from that.
True, absolutely. I've always had an enjoyment for writing, and so this seems like a perfect fit for me.
It is. It really does for us, too. One of the things I've appreciated you've brought to the Journal is your blog articles. And of course, a blog is a great way to take something and make it more personal or less formal. And you can pose some questions and try to generate some conversation in our industry, which we always appreciate. And I think you've also brought on board someone else to write some blog articles for us?
Yes, Ken Conklin. First of all, on my blog, I enjoy writing, and it's a good way to express some views about the industry. The other thing that I'd like to bring to Microwave Journal, in addition to the great technical depth, is some perspective on the industry and the business side of the industry, and that's an area of interest for me. So hopefully my blog will be a way to do that, and we can get a conversation going with our readers in terms of some of those topics.
Right.
Ken Conklin, I met first when I was working at MACOM, and he was at MACOM. And I didn't know it at the time, but Ken is a writer. He enjoys writing, and he actually writes a periodic column for the Roanoke Times in the area where he lives. And I've always appreciated, once I started reading that, his sense of humor. And I thought his business and technical background combined with a sense of humor would be something that our readers would enjoy. And so his first blog post is up, and hopefully folks will check it out and see what they think.
Something about like a hammer, or
like a hammer.
Like a hammer.
Right.
So we'll have to check that out. I haven't read it yet.
It's sort of the intersection of the best, as he calls it, the best microwave product since sliced bread and the Beatles.
Sounds interesting. I'll probably go read it after this. We should probably, at this point, introduce the October issue. It was just mailed out last week, and so many people have received it by now. The theme is government and military electronics. And you'd probably be best to tell us about the cover story and some of the special articles in this issue.
Yes, the cover story is an interesting one on the DARPA Mobile Hotspots program. And the idea there is to have a constellation of UAVs connected to troops on the ground, either through mobile devices or, say, vehicle-mounted terminals that will have gigabit per second type data rates. So it's a very high-speed data network. And in order to get the links to carry that kind of bandwidth, they've done a lot of development in E-band, which is basically 71 to 86 gigahertz. And I thought it was very interesting. On the commercial side, E-band is being used for point-to-point backhaul for small cells, and a lot of commercial products are sort of in the quarter-watt range. Well, on this program, they've developed power amplifiers that are up 10 to 20 watts, so quite a bit higher. It's an impressive technical development, and I think our readers will enjoy it. We also have a number of other articles, 5 technical features and a special report on basically characterizing and modeling nonlinear devices. And I'm sure, as all of our design engineers know, time to market is critical for business success. And the way you get fast time to market is first pass design success, and that means your models better be good. So this is an interesting article that covers some of those aspects. We also have one that I'll mention that's characterizing an antenna that's part of a transmit active module. And in many cases, characterizing antennas is easy because antennas are passive devices, they're reciprocal, and so you basically measure them as a receiver. But in the case of a transmitter, you can't do that. So this article describes the technique and the results associated with looking at an active transmit radar module. So it's pretty interesting.
Sounds important too. Sounds
Yes.
like it's a must-read.
Yes. So how about you? What are some of the other features going on in the magazine?
The products. I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the products we're covering. Of course, Keysight Technologies submitted an article about their new high-speed arbitrary waveform generators. Also, Sage Millimeter has written about their millimeter wave full waveguide signal mixers. And Anna Pico has written an article about their transient analysis and VCO testing. For Tech Briefs, we cover a 4-channel, 20 gigahertz sampling oscilloscope. We also cover a new line of low-PIM cable jumpers and multi-lane single connection signal integrity measurements. So all of this in the Tech Brief section of the October issue. Of course, you're so fluent talking about these topics, and of course I'm new at it, but those are the products that we feature in this issue. So hopefully,
Interesting.
Yeah, people will get on board with that. So we should move on to the news. What's going on in the industry this week?
A couple of things that I noticed I think are pretty significant. There was an announcement that Global Foundries is acquiring IBM's semiconductor business. This is another step, if you will, in a lot of the consolidation that's taking place in the industry. One of the interesting things about this deal, normally when a company buys something of another company, they pay for it.
Yeah.
However, in this case, IBM is actually paying Global Foundries to take the business, and they're going to pay around at $1.5 billion, give or take, over a several-year period. The other thing in the announcement IBM made when they declared their quarterly results, they took a $4.7 billion write-off, basically to recognize the cost of transferring the business and the impaired assets, as they called it.
Wow.
So I think it's a good move for both companies. I think it allows IBM to really focus on their core business. And as far as Global Foundries, they are in the semiconductor business. They have been developing RF processes. And this gives them, as their CEO said, 500 of the best technologists in the world.
Wow.
With some very good processes. So I think overall for the industry, it's a good move. Another thing I noticed this week, both Freescale and NXP reported their quarterly results. Freescale, in their RF business, reported revenue of $157 million. The thing that struck me about that is that was up 31% from the last quarter, and if you compare the year-to-date results with last year's year-to-date for the 3 quarters, it's up 52%. Wow. And it's because of the mobile infrastructure build-out that's taking place. For Freescale is primarily in China with China Mobile. NXP doesn't report their numbers at that level, but they also indicated in their results that there's a very strong base station market. They attributed it more broadly than China to other regions of the world. I think the message for that, for our viewers, is that if you're selling products into the infrastructure market, it's a good time to be in business. You ought to be seeing some pretty strong demand. The only negative I saw is because both Freescale and NXP are struggling for capacity, lead times are now past 20 weeks. So if you have a lead time that's shorter than that, you may have some difficulty turning your orders into revenue real quickly.
Right.
Anyway, what kind of news struck you this week?
The news that I wanted to bring out was some rapidly approaching deadlines for people who may want to submit papers for presentation at some trade shows coming up. For instance, the Space Tech Expo. They're looking for papers by November 7th. That's really fast. The good news on the next one, Electronic Design Innovation, or EDICon, they've extended, or I should say we've extended, the call for papers deadline to November 30. The International Microwave Symposium, or the MTTS show, looking for papers by December 8th. And finally, WAMICon, or the Wireless and Microwave Technology Conference, looking for papers by January 5th. So there are links for all the call for papers for each of these shows under their respective listings on the events page at mwjournal.com. Regarding shows, are you going to any shows in the coming months for the Journal?
Not in the next few months,
Okay.
although there are a couple that our viewers are probably interested in. One is the Asia Pacific Microwave Conference that's coming up in Sendai, Japan, November 4th through 7th. And then the next week, Electronica will be held in Munich, November 11th through 14th. And although I won't be there, I understand we'll have presence there.
Yep, yep.
So,
Microwave Journal will be
Yep.
on the ground and interested in meeting with whoever
Yeah.
wants to get together for a conference or an update with us. That's great. Good news. Never a dull moment in the microwave industry, that's for sure. It seems
Right.
like trade show season has extended to be all year long,
12 months.
12 months, and of course is 12 months of Microwave Journal every year that's chock full of good information. So that just about wraps it up for this episode of Frequency Matters. We do want to thank our sponsors, Keysight Technologies, formerly Agilent Technologies Electronic Measurements Business, online at keysight.com. Also, Mini Circuits, you can find out more about their products online at minicircuits.com. And we'd like to thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of Frequency Matters.